My name is Anya Kornhauser. I come from Poland, from the Polish Ukraine. As far as anti-Semitism is concerned, I come from the worst part of the world. I was a young girl. I'm a grandmother now. I may look to you like any other grandmother, but I'm not. I'm different. I'm different because deep down, I have a story that presses at my heart. My story has pain. And I'd like to share my story with you. I am a Holocaust survivor, but not a concentration camp one. In comparison, I feel very lucky that I did not go through the shocking horrors of the concentration camps. As we all know, the majority of the Gentile world stood by and did nothing when Nazi Germany was exterminating the Jews during World War II. But I am living proof of a very small percentage of some wonderful human beings, real Christians who endangered their lives to save mine. Although very few in numbers, nevertheless, there were some. When the Second World War started in 1939, I was 14 years old. Poland was divided in half between Germany and the Soviet Union. We were lucky to be in the Russian sector. My parents were business people, and I had two brothers and one sister. In 1940, my older brother was drafted into the Russian army, and I never saw him again. June 22nd, 1941, Germany attacked Russia without a warning. The Ukraine was never an independent country. In Russia, it was a republic. We had lived with the Russians and with the Poles, went to school with them, grown up with them, but nevertheless, to them, we are always foreigners. And here comes Hitler and offers them an independent Ukraine for their collaboration to help them with the Jewish problem. They're only too happy to oblige. August 4th, 1941, we were told to take only what we can carry. That was the first lie, and it was the first akция, we called it. They herded us up in the square. The sick were taken out of stretchers from the hospitals. And then we were told to leave everything and start marching in the middle of the street because Jewish people were not allowed to walk on the sidewalk. Then we noticed young Ukrainian men with shovels on their shoulders singing. When we came to a big field, there was a selection. The sick and the old to one side, the young and the children to another. We couldn't find my father. I urged my mother to go to the sick. Maybe they wouldn't send her to work. I wanted to spare her. She didn't want to go, but she finally went. When my sister noticed that my mother wasn't there, she started to scold me. Why did you let her go? And my sister can scold. So to get away from her, I went to the selection line, limping and bending down, pretending to be a cripple, hoping to go to the sick, to my mother. And this young assessment straightened me up, and he said, "You are young, you can work, and did not allow me to go to the sick. As it turned out, the old and the sick were held back, and the young and the children were sent home. When we came home, we found my father. He was hiding. At night, we heard shots. At midnight, there was a knock on the window. My mother walked in with her long hair down and all a slip on her body. She couldn't talk. She embraced my father for a long time. In the morning, she told us what happened. When we left, the Ukrainians dug graves to put 10 in one. They set them in lines, one person backed up behind the next person as they killed them and buried them while the ground was still moving. My mother was in one of the last two graves. Her sister and brother were with her. Suddenly, my aunt said to my mother, "Pearl, get up. They're calling us." My mother said, "I don't want to see." When she finally got up, there was an assessment standing up in a jeep calling them. He asked them, "Do you believe in God?" And when they said yes, he let them go. But the three men from the two graves were held back and shot. And one of them was my uncle, my mother's brother. That was the first akция, we called it. The second akция was a few months later. With the help of the Ukrainian collaborators, they rounded up all the young people, put them on trucks, took them out of the city, killed them, and buried them in one big mass grave. The rest were told to go home. We were hiding. My mother felt very guilty that most of her friends and relatives had no more children, and she still had her two daughters. My mother felt very bad and afraid that I did not have a working permit. If you didn't have a working permit, you didn't get any bread, and they might take you away. So one day, I went to the Judenrat to see if there was any work available. The Judenrat is a council of elders that was elected to run the ghetto. I saw a few of my friends signing up to go to an estate to pick hops 12 kilometers from our city. So I too signed up. We worked there from sunrise to sundown, eating only potato soup. Well, I got very sick with dysentery and crippled with cramps. I couldn't work. They sent me back to the ghetto. And I'm the only one of the 150 workers that survived. And sometimes I ask myself, why me? In October 1942, that was the third and last akcja. People started to build hiding places, getting ready, a double floor, a double wall. We were supposed to be in a certain place at noon. And that's when we went into the hiding place. Our hiding place was under a twin bed, as big as a twin bed, in my aunt's house. And when a Gentile found a Jew and turned him in, they get a kilogram of salt as a reward. And many did. And when the Ukrainians were no more useful to them, they were told there's not going to be an independent Ukraine. And that's when they formed a partisan group, fighting the Germans behind the lines and disposing of a hiding Jew whenever they could find one. They were called Banderovцы after their leader Bandera. Our hiding place was small, like I said, as big as a twin bed. There were 8 of us. My aunt, her 5-year-old granddaughter, my 2 cousins, my father and mother, my sister and I. My aunt had a 5-year-old granddaughter. And one day, this little 5-year-old girl said, if you're not going to give me a drink of water, I'm going to scream. Having no choice, we gave her urine to drink. She never asked for another drink. It's really much easier to get along without food than without water. So after 3 weeks being underground, we had to get out. We decided every night 2 will go out in pairs so the rest could stretch. My sister was a country teacher 14 kilometers from the city. Whenever the farmers would come to the city, they would eat and sleep in our house. My mother was very good to them. So we figured if we could get to that village, they know us, they are friends, they'll hide us. We were dreamers. And somehow, my sister and I got out of the ghetto, and that was quite a sight to see, because the ghetto was covered with all kind of religious articles. That was one thing they had no use for. Everything else they took away. And somehow we got to that village where my sister used to teach. People we knew chased and threatened us. We heard there are partisans around, but unfortunately there are 2 kinds of partisans. Russian partisans that would welcome us, Ukrainian partisans that would kill us. The languages are very similar, and we spoke both. One night, when nobody would let us in anymore, we heard them. We got frightened and hid. We were very cold, wet, and hungry. We decided to walk to the forest. Maybe they'll be warmer there. When we approached the forest, we saw a little white house with smoke coming out of the chimney. What a beautiful sight to see, how we envied the people inside that small, warm house. My sister suddenly said, we can't go there. They are drinking, they're singing. We started to run in snow to our waist, about a half a kilometer. I sat down and refused to go any further. I said to her, you do as you please. I'm going back to that little white house. Something was pulling me there. She followed me reluctantly. We knocked at the door, and this lovely woman came to the house, and she said, welcome. Please come in. And we were quite a sight to see. We couldn't figure out what's happening here, but I didn't care anymore. The majority in the Ukraine are Greek Orthodox. There's some Catholics, But I never heard of Protestants. And in this village, you could find one family, a Protestant, maybe two families. But these people had 2 rooms, including the kitchen, 3 children, and a couple, and then they took us in. And we all slept in the same room. When her husband came home, she said to him, I took in 2 young girls for the night. And he had a deep voice, and I was frightened. He said, you did the right thing. We couldn't figure it out. But when the couple got ready to go to bed, they both knelt and prayed in their own words, Dear God, save the Israelite remnants. That's the first time I ever heard anybody refer to us as Israelites. In that house I learned that not every Gentile is a Christian. These people were real Christians. People from neighboring villages would come to their 2-room house to worship every Sunday. They were people from different denominations, Pentecostals, Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, Evangelists, and others. The next day, a Polish Baptist farmer came and took me to his farm. When the Ukrainians started to kill the Poles, for whom they had no la vida, the family I was staying with had to leave to the city. I followed them a few days later, but they couldn't keep me there. So one day, on a Sunday, they took me to the big city of Rovno, to the meeting house. That's what they call their church, to see if somebody would help me there. As we parted company with these people, pretending not to know each other, we went into the church. I waited for the Reverend to finish his sermon, and I went over to him and I asked him if he could help me get some work, because my parents were killed by the partisans, and I'm an orphan, and I'm all by myself. He called over a director of a candy factory and asked him to give me a job. He said, I'll be glad to come tomorrow to the factory. Well, tomorrow is a long time from today. Where am I going to sleep? I said to him, I have no place to stay. He called over this man and he said, this sister is going to sleep in your house today. Bring her with you to the factory tomorrow. I learned not to be afraid of these people, to tell them who I am. If they couldn't or wouldn't help me, they always found somebody that would. The next day, his wife made sandwiches for us, and we went to work. He went to his job. I went to the office to look for the director of the factory. When I reminded him of his promise he made to me yesterday in church, he said to me, I'm very sorry. You can see I'm very busy now. Please come back in 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks is a life sentence. Having no choice, I said to him, may I speak to you in private? He took me into his office and I said, you know, I am Jewish. His eyes popped out. He said, you are an Israelite. If so, I have to help you. You got to come from the Ukraine to appreciate that. As a Polish orphan girl, he wasn't helping me. But as an Israelite, he felt it his duty to help me. I lived with that family. I went to church with them. I even sang in a choir. And one day, when I came back from church on a Sunday, there was a neighbor visiting. She took one look at me, and she said, "You are a hiker." A hiker is a name for a Jewish girl. I said, "Don't be silly." And I walked out through the back door, and I never came back. I went to the director of the candy factory, and I told him about it. He said to me, "You sleep in the factory. The city is no place for you, and I will try to find a place for you on a farm or a Protestant family and make a passport for you." Well, I still had my father's gold pocket watch. I gave it to him. He sold it. He gave me back the rest of the money. That's all I had to do, is take a picture. That was the worst thing for me, because I have very natural curly hair. And only Jewish people had natural curly hair. There were no permanents then. I always wore a kerchief. And you had to show your left ear in the picture for some strange reason. I stayed up all night, pulled my hair, straightened it, made pigtails, and went to take a picture. Then the director of the candy factory had a friend in a village, and he told him about me. He came to see for himself that I don't look too Jewish, and took me to his village. I was registered there because I had papers, and my name there was Andulka Mazanek. I had many names in those years. I was liberated there February 2nd, 1944. I thought I was the only Jewish person left in the whole world. My brother tracked me down. My sister tracked me down. There were 3 of us then. And when the war was over, the Russians allowed the Polish citizens go to Poland legally. Then from Poland, we went to Austria illegally. In Poland, in Austria, I met my husband, who was a concentration camp survivor, a survivor of 7 concentration camps. And he was the only one left from his family. There were 7 children, and he was the oldest. Fell in love and got married. We have 2 devoted sons, 2 lovely daughter-in-laws, and like any grandmother would say, 4 gorgeous grandchildren. We came to the United States February 2nd, 1949. Looking back on my teen years, I have often wondered how we managed to emerge from the Nazi hell with our sanity intact. The world was silent, and we were doomed. And whenever the so-called, the historical revisionists, the deniers, deny the Holocaust, I get very angry. How dare they? I'm still alive, and I'm a witness to this terrible part of history. And it is already being denied. It never happened. I'm very disturbed by it, and it is not debatable. Thank you.